The European Union has been in Malawi for over 48 years now. It is a partnership, a shared partnership of values, including democracy, the rule of law, economic growth, and other things. But what exactly has transpired on the ground from paper to reality? In Zodiac Exclusive today, I am honored to have Ambassador Rune Skinnebach. Am I pronouncing it right?
Absolutely.
Good to have you on our program today.
Thank you.
How do you think Malawi has benefited from this partnership? 49 years old.
So I was thinking the other day, since my tenure here is coming to an end, I was looking at my own footprint,
Right.
and wondering what are the structural long-term impacts that I can say happened during the last 4 years. But since '76, we have been here mostly as a development partner. We have recently, we in our program from 2021 to 24, we have 352 million euros alone that has gone into 3 sectors, and very tangible impacts is, of course, the over 300 kilometers of road, the 2,000 schools, the many pupils who have benefited from bursaries, etc. So there is a real impact on the Malawians. However, I'm not so convinced that this is a sustainable impact, and that's part of the frustration when the term is coming to an end. There's also another issue. We have been here, as you mentioned, for decades. We have shared values, shared principles with Malawi, and the promotion of values and principles has been very much on the forefront of what the EU was doing in Malawi and many other countries since its creation. Now, lately, we have added to principles and values, we have added interests also. So we are promoting our interests. That means that we are not only here to do good for Malawians, we are also here to do good for Europeans. In the case of Malawi, our interests coincide. I think that Europe wants to invest, Europe wants to make business, and Malawi needs foreign direct investments. It needs a private sector-led growth. So I think there is our interests are coinciding, which makes my job a lot easier. But the long-term structural impact in Malawi is smaller than I would have expected, partly due to the exogenous shock that Malawi suffered just before my arrival, during my tenure with Cyclone Anna and Freddy, but also due to the fact that the demographic pressure in Malawi absorbs part of the growth that we are trying to build.
Right.
Now, that being said, it is of course difficult to assess what would have happened had we not been here.
You believe in the country after 4 years now. What is your impression of Malawi? What picture of Malawi are you living with?
You know, Malawi is a very easy place to land. The beautiful lake, the mountains, the people, the youthful population, the climate. And it's also an easy place to operate as a diplomat because you have quite good relations with government. You have easy access compared to many places. But that being said, it's also a place where it's very difficult to create results. And that gives a mixed feeling. I will certainly miss all the positive things, but I will also be leaving with a degree of disappointment and frustration that I did not achieve what I hoped to achieve during my 4 years.
What exactly would this be?
Well, I would have loved to contribute to turning the vicious spiral that Malawi finds itself in around. I would have loved to see that instead of more poor people, we have less poor people in Malawi. Instead of less investment, that we have more investments in Malawi. Instead of more debt, that we have less debt in Malawi. But this is not the case.
Why are we in this situation, you think? Why are we having all this debt? Why can't we turn around the fortunes for the poor?
I'm not sure. If I knew that things would be a lot easier. As I say, certainly the demographic pressure is absorbing part of the growth. This is clear. Certainly, corruption is very difficult to fight in many countries, but in Malawi, which is one of the poorest countries in the world, you cannot afford corruption. Every dollar that goes into corruption is taken from social sectors. It's taken from the health sector, from a school, and that is dramatic. And it has proven very difficult to fight.
Talk about governance. You have previously discussed public finance management and your concerns about it. Do you think from the time that you have been raising these issues, there has been some change?
There have been changes, of course. Remember, we pulled out of budget support in 2012, 2013, along with other development partners, and the European Union was the first development partner to go back into budget support last year. That means that we have special access also to discuss public finance management. And there is certainly progress when it comes to application of IFMIS. There's certainly progress on a series of fronts, but there are also challenges. The challenges is, of course, the ones that come with an election year, namely that it's very, very difficult to maintain fiscal discipline, something that Malawi has never done, by the way.
You agree that it's difficult to manage the period before an election?
Of course, because the pressures are enormous. But that's the politicians' problems, not mine.
Right.
Otherwise, I would change jobs because I don't know how to surmount that obstacle.
Right.
But it is a real obstacle. It's difficult to not only restructure, but also to diminish the debts because you overspend. The forex situation in Malawi is a particular problem that holds back private businesses also because it's very difficult to operate. And the access to finance that comes partly by the fact that the private sector is crowded out by the public sector and the domestic banks is another real issue. So this combination is an insurmountable problem. We tried to push EU along with other development partners. We tried to push the IMF to grant the extended credit facility to Malawi. We succeeded in that together with Malawian authorities, but unfortunately, as you know, Malawi stepped out quite recently, which now again destabilizes the macro framework to an extent that investors could be scared away.
In your view, was that the best of decisions to make in the circumstances that they gave?
I don't know if it was really a decision. I think it was something that had to be done because the criteria for staying within the ECF was linked to a fiscal discipline which was impossible to maintain during election year. It was linked to revenue mobilization, which is difficult to increase during an election year. It was linked to debt restructuring, which is not entirely into Malawi's control. And finally, it was linked to forex generation, which is very difficult when you don't have a production, unless you really want to cut on the imports. But of course, people don't want to see fuel prices increase or medication prices increase. So it's a very, very difficult situation.
Mm-hmm. There are growing calls for economic independence in Malawi and some other African countries. Clearly, these states believe that colonialism only allowed third world countries political independence and not economic independence. Do you share this?
Your question reminds me of my big teenage boy who recently experienced being on his own in my country, which is Denmark. And he realized that most Danish youth they pursue their studies and they work on the side to finance it. He's in a different situation because we are far away, so we support him. And he came to me and he said, "Dad, I want to be independent like my friends." And I said, "Fine, go ahead." So listen, everything we do it in coordination with government. If they do not want European taxpayers' money, they can simply say no, thank you.
I think the issue is about the strings that are attached to the help, the economic help that they get from outside.
Like what?
Well, I'll give you, very recently, there was an issue about political violence. And you made a statement in public,
Yes?
obviously concerned with what had happened. And there was a line, if they quoted you right, that said you could consider withdrawing your assistance to the police because of the manner in which you perceived the police had handled matters.
That is
Was
true.
that a correct quotation?
That is close enough. What I am here to do is to help Malawi, but also to ensure sound financial management of European taxpayers' money. If we are supporting an institution that is unwilling or incapable of carrying out its mandate, or perceived as such at least, then we must check whether there is any usefulness in doing what we're doing. This goes not only for the police, it goes for any sector. If we don't get value for money, then of course we will consider whether we can spend it better or elsewhere.
What was your particular concern with that incident? Was it the manner in which the police handled it, or the fact that this was growing political violence?
No. In this particular incident last week, it was the manner in which the police did not handle it. It was the photo documentation that we have all seen of police officers seemingly standing idle next to criminal acts being carried out.
What's your view on stamping out political violence in Malawi? How do we get to a lasting solution to that problem? It's a problem we see that began, or at least is perceived to have begun around 1994 when we adopted plural politics. And every time around elections, we seem to have a lot of this. How do we get a permanent solution? Is it the police to manage it?
No, I think it's important to remember that democracy is what happens between elections. Elections are the celebration, if you like, of democracy. This is where we can formally hold accountable those in power. But this is something that we should be doing all the time. In '94, Malawians were giving all the democratic rights. I can certainly understand if you don't know what to eat tomorrow, if you live in poverty, as is the case for 70% of the population, then you do not have the resources required to carry out your democratic duties every day. Therefore, it's only normal that the situation, the debate, the tensions increase a bit when election approaches. Under such circumstances, clearly violence is unacceptable, and it is the institutions in charge of maintaining law and order that should ensure that violence is not erupting, and if it is erupting, that those conducting it are brought to charges.
But in your view, who holds the key to stopping political violence? Do you think someone is responsible for this?
I think, first of all, those who are conducting the violence. Secondly, those who are orchestrating it. Thirdly, those who are charged with the responsibility of preventing it.
Right. You spoke about poverty and the concerns you have with what is going on with poverty in our midst. Of course, and then the cost of living. We spoke about the fuel, we spoke about food, we spoke about issues of fertilizer, and then you also talked about the issue of forex just now. Well, don't you think what is happening in Malawi now, contradicts the spirit of the EU-Malawi partnership? You spoke about poverty and the concerns you have with what is going on with poverty in our midst. Of course, and then the cost of living. We spoke about the fuel, we spoke about food, we spoke about issues of fertilizer, and then you also talked about the issue of forex just now. Well, don't you think what is happening in Malawi now, contradicts the spirit of the EU-Malawi partnership? You set out on a journey to resolve, to help each other on various issues. And here we are, 49 years on.
As I said initially, we don't know what would have happened if we weren't here. It could be that it was even worse. Now, what we see now, all these elements that you mentioned, which correctly so, is more than anything symptoms of Malawi living beyond its means. And that is dramatic, because how can you say you live beyond your means and yet you have 70% of the population living in poverty? So there's a real issue. And this is why it is so important to turn this spiral around. And to do that, we need foreign direct investment. And to get that, we need to create an offer in Malawi which is not only more attractive, but which is more attractive than the offer provided by neighboring countries, because this is the investors, they are not in it to help Malawi, they are in it to make money, of course. And you need to create those win-wins. And this is where we, EU, is trying to push. We have this relatively new facility from 22, which is the Global Gateway Investment Package for Africa. We have 150 billion euros for Africa alone, which is here to provide development assistance, but also including private finance for investment, European investments institutions for guaranteeing investments, for leveraging them, and all this money is there, waiting to be put into good use. Well, some of it has been spent now, but for Malawi to attract this money, it must create an offer which is better than those of its competitors, if you like. I see Malawi is so rich on policies and strategies, but when it comes to implementation, when it comes to doing the footwork in preparing the legal framework, we are lacking behind.
And do you understand why?
I think part of it is an unhealthy administrative culture, where people are promoted not only on merit, but also on connections and maybe even party affiliations, etc. This is something that happens in many, many countries. But some countries, it's like corruption. Some countries can afford it better than others. But also, I think that we just have made a very complex administration over the years. And when I do my spiel, and I do it every time I meet somebody from government, I say, you must pick some of the low-hanging fruits. And with low-hanging fruits, I mean, if you want to see the ATM strategy materialize, you need to look at agriculture. We want to do mega farms. Well, we can't do mega farms without investments. To do mega farms, we need irrigation, transport, energy infrastructure. That we can help with. However, it's not enough. We also need to make sure that investors can get land leases beyond 25 years. So the land reform bill needs to be reviewed. We need investors to be assured that they can decide on whom or where to export their high-value crops. For that to happen, the crops bill needs to be reviewed. Same with tourism. I've been here 4 years. the visa regime for my Danish compatriots is still very complicated. They have to go into an e-visa site that is sometimes dysfunctional. Sometimes you need a Malawian credit card to pay for the visa. And meanwhile, they can go very easily to Mozambique or Tanzania, and at a cheaper price, because here you only have 1 or 2 air companies flying in, so prices are not really competitive. This must be changed. If you want the tourism sector to thrive, if you want tourists from Europe, you must make it easy to come here, and certainly easier than going to neighboring countries. And the same for the mining development, or the mining part. We have seen over the past year a couple of free mining development agreements signed, but mining companies are queuing up. We are offering to assist with negotiation with mining companies because we don't have any or very few in Europe, and therefore we come as an impartial partner, and we have the expertise. We could help. We can't even get the request to mobilize that help out of government. So there is an inertia or friction, as you say, and I cannot explain why, but I can confirm that it's a pity, because without those elements, I don't see the HCM strategy being anything but a strategy.
Live big with Jackpot City Casino, now in Malawi.
Given what you have experienced over these years, how far away do you envision an economically sound, independent Malawi? All things being equal.
Clearly we can see that the MIPS that is made under the Vision 2063 is not being adhered to. And there's a number of good exogenous reasons for that. We underestimated the impact of COVID. We've had the cyclones, El Nino. My challenge is that there will always be good reasons for not achieving goals. So I think that there is a positive development around Malawi, and that will have a certain pull factor. I think that Malawi has the huge asset of a relatively peaceful place. We're talking about electoral violence, but compared to other countries, it is still a beacon of democracy. It's still relatively peaceful here. I think that you do not have to choose between ideologies, because people are more into policies, and there is a large consensus, so I don't see that the elections will disrupt anything, which is possibly a good thing also. But to harness the potential of Malawi, something needs to happen. And I'm hopeful that, and therefore I'm also very sorry that I cannot be here after the next election, because when for whoever wins, there will be a honeymoon of a few years to make all the right decisions, to make some of the tough choices that need to be made, even at the cost of the already suffering population. But we need to turn this ship around.
Somebody told me Ambassador Rune is too open for a diplomat.
Yes, he's probably right.
You don't seem to want to wrap many things in diplomacy.
I think during the past 4 years, I have become so attached to the country of Malawi that I almost consider myself a part-taking citizen, and therefore I am quite open. But I'm also open because this is one of the big pluses of Malawi. I think there is a tradition for being open. We talk about corruption. It's not a taboo. Everybody talks about it, which is a fabulous start to fight it. We just need to to succeed somehow, and I'm not sure I'm holding the recipe for that. The access that we diplomats have with government, the dialogues that we enjoy every 6 months with government, and normally also with the president, is very, very special. And to live in a context where there is room for such open discussion is an immense privilege also. But only if you make use of it, and that's what I'm doing.
Right. Now, there's a tripartite election coming, presidential, parliamentary, and a local government election. What is the expectation of the EU this time around?
So, first of all, the EU has been invited to observe the election. And we just need the final agreements to be signed, and then we are ready to mobilize quite a substantial observer mission. I think in total it will be around 100 people who will be here throughout the election period. My expectation is that, or rather I would say I am concerned about it, because we have seen the few incidents already, latest last week, but I'm also concerned that with the 50+1, we will go into a protracted process where there will be a second round. And with the precedence that was created in 2019, there is obviously a risk that whoever loses the election will take it to court.
Right.
That means that this September 16th could be extended months. And if indeed the tension is there, tension will increase during this month-long period. And if there's something that we don't need now in Malawi, it's more tension, and it's a paralysis of the political system.
Have you engaged government, stakeholders on these, your concerns?
Of course, we talk regularly with government on these things, but I think it's not my concerns alone, it's also the concerns of government and those of other development partners. So everybody agrees that we must make sure that this does not change the democratic path that Malawi has been on for so many years.
Mm-hmm. And these stakeholders you have engaged include the Malawi Electoral Commission itself?
So the particularity in Malawi is that in spite of being so poor, the elections are largely funded by Malawi itself. We have a very little chip. The EU is the biggest donor in the election support basket fund managed by the UNDP. And there in that context, we engage with the MEC also, but not only with the MEC, we also engage with civil society, and certainly with female party leaders, with youth. So we engage a lot with everybody. That's part of our role. But while on surface there's a general consensus that everybody wants democratic elections, in reality the incidents that we witnessed last week suggest that at least there's somebody who is not so keen on having a peaceful election.
Local politician, he was a former vice president of this country. He says elections in Malawi contribute to the economic problems that we face because of how much we spend around elections. Would you agree with that? He thinks that's why we're in perpetual, one of the reasons why we're in perpetual economic problems.
Elections in Malawi are costly.
You just said that we spend more on elections.
More than we do. No, it's just that our little, relatively or proportionately small contribution gives access but not leverage.
In fact, last time I spoke to you, you were concerned about the average expenditure on the individual voter in Malawi.
But it's a difficult country to organize elections in. It's a complicated process, and it comes with a cost, yes. But it is money which is going, it's not thrown away. It's going into circulation. I mean, like if you build a road, you hire companies, you ensure some kind of productivity around it. The elections are the same. I think you should ask the politician that you quote what else he would have used this money for, and then you can do the comparison.
I presume, Ambassador, that you have met the president to take leave of him.
I am hoping to meet him, and we are trying to find a suitable date
You
now.
have met before.
Yes, yes.
And what has dominated your discussions?
So we have had regular meetings following our biannual dialogues, where we discuss so we have all European ambassadors accredited to Malawi and relevant ministers assembled around the table. And normally, after the discussion, we go and brief the president. And then I've had the opportunity to meet the president at a couple of occasions on more ad hoc issues, also on one-on-one. Yeah.
Right. And what dominates this kind of discussions?
Well, the situation,
for the EU.
situation in Malawi, of course.
Situation in
how
Malawi,
best
economy,
how best
politics.
we address it. Right. No, these meetings are one-on-one for a reason. I will not reveal our
But
discussions
you're working
here.
on behalf of the people of your country.
Yes.
Do you not want to tell them what you discuss with the president? Are you not responsible to give them an account of what you discuss with him?
No, what I'm held accountable against is how I carry out. I have a mandate, which here is to build relations with Malawi in order to promote in the best possible ways our values, our principles, and our interests. And then of course, make this work in the context of the Malawi's development vision, which is the 2063 or the ATM.
And the opposition? Have you had time to meet leaders?
Of course, yeah.
All opposition leaders? Or
No,
selected
you have too
opposition
many
leaders?
in this country.
I got too many. Too many for you.
No, too many for me to meet, yes.
what would be the normal size? Overall opposition.
No. I meet here as we approach election. I try to meet as many as possible, but it's a busy time for them and for me.
Obviously, you have a criteria for selecting them.
Yeah, the biggest parties.
The biggest parties.
Yeah.
So you'd say you've met the president of the DPP?
So some are more easy to meet than others. I have met those that I could, but again on one-on-ones, and I'm not going to reveal names or discussions to Zodiak or any other media.
But I caught that some are difficult to access.
So yeah, but for logistical reasons, it can be that they reside far away from Lilongwe, and yeah. But of course,
the content of the campaign to September 16 includes issues of public finance management.
I'm not sure.
Discussion in
It's
the public.
very difficult for me to assess what the content of the campaign is. That it hasn't started, and I haven't seen the manifestos yet.
Officially, it hasn't started. But the politicians are out on the streets and talking to us. So I can tell you that they're out telling us to vote for them.
No, but what I've seen is that I'm still lacking the substance. I want to see the manifestos, because now it's really, there's a lot of finger pointing, which is not very helpful. But I think the manifestos will give us an indication of what are the particularities of each political party. Now, for me, it's interesting to see, of course, that most parties agree on all parties agree on the challenges. Most parties agree on how to address them. Some are a bit more private sector oriented than others, but by and large, there are no huge difference in policies to be proposed, I guess. At least that's what I gather from my discussions. So it should be perfectly easy to create a government that agrees on which way to pull.
So, Ambassador, if you came back in the same position again, if it ever happened,
yes,
what would you do better in your office?
First of all, if I came back, I hope the world would have changed. Now I'm fighting for every euro that I get to Malawi because we have a war at our doorstep. We have war between Israel and Gaza. We have problems in Sudan. There are so many competing agendas. And I think that this is a real challenge. This has meant also that our instruments are changing. This is why I'm saying we're moving towards a global gateway where we give less grants and we give more money to leverage investments, to guarantee loans, these things. So I would focus from day one on helping Malawi improve its offer to attract those investments, because this is so critical for me. Instead of now we do school feeding programs and we build roads, this is nice, but it's not necessarily what is needed now. What we need is to attract investment.
I noticed that after the US elections, when Trump again took office, discussion and debate and promotion of rights of minorities, LGBTIs, kind of simmered down, even here in Malawi. Is this a coincidence?
This you have to ask our American colleagues about. For me, we have not.
EU was very strong about this
we have not
human
changed.
rights
We have
issue.
not changed course on that. We're still as strong as we were on human rights. It is true, though, that gradually we will be fading out of that sector because it's not a sector that mobilizes a lot of investment. So human rights is part of the offer that Malawi has to produce. If a country doesn't give security, if it doesn't respect human rights, it's very difficult to attract tourists, for example.
As you leave office
Yeah.
in Malawi, where are these matters? I mean, minority rights issues. What file are you leaving to your successor?
So first of all, I'm leaving a country which has taken two mandates, one after the other, in the Human Rights Council in Geneva, which speaks to Malawi's commitment to the issues.
Right.
I'm leaving a country where the abolishment of death penalty has not taken place, but de facto there has been a moratorium on death penalty since the early 90s. I'm leaving a country where you have a freedom of expression to a very large extent, in spite of the incidents that we see now and there, also hindering manifestations or demonstrations to be carried out. But by and large, I'm leaving a country which is doing decently on the human rights scale.
Lastly, maybe not least, what is your view of Malawi? You live in Malawi. I don't know when exactly, but what memories would you have about Malawi?
I have very good memories of Malawi. It's been 4 years. It's a long period of a short life. I think the beauty of the country, the lake, the mountains, the fantastic weather here in Malawi, but more than anything, it's people. I think wherever I have gone with my wife or on my own, we have been incredibly well received. Whenever we have had meetings, and even if we have had serious discussions, people have always been cordial and very correct. And I would just have wanted that I could have helped more in harnessing the potential of Malawi. And this is what I would do better if I had the opportunity to come back. But easy place to land, great place to be, difficult place to make things happen in.
Again, what's going on in your mind when you look at all these attributes that you give to Malawi and the life that the 70% people have to live?
Yeah, no, it's extremely saddening and frustrating. And I think this is the very heavy responsibility, not only on the shoulders of the politicians of Malawi and the population of Malawi at large, who is deciding who should be the politicians, but particularly of you, media, who has the responsibility to speak out on behalf of all those people who don't have the resources to do it, to hold accountable those in power all the time, and to follow up on stories and make sure that they have a real impact also. So it's there's a big task ahead, and I wish you the best of luck.
I thank you so much, Ambassador Skinnebach.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you again for always giving us access to you when you're in office.
With pleasure.
That was Ambassador Rune Skinnebach, outgoing ambassador of the European Union in Malawi. Until next time, it's goodbye.